Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Andrews. Your Excellencies, Ministers, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed, dear friends, Kalispera. It's a great pleasure for me to be back here in Athens, back here in Greece, a country that I visited many times and where I have very fond memories. To answer your question, Mr. Andrews, I have driven sports cars, but never a Formula One, never an F1, an F3. This was many years ago at a driving school, but but that's another. We'll get into that later. So I'm delighted to be part of this summit this evening, devoted to one of the most important issues of our time, and perhaps, if we look at things with hindsight, the most important issue of all, and that is sustainability. Therefore, I'd like to thank the organizers of the summit and the Economist teams, to thank them for giving me the floor for us, but more importantly, to thank them for taking the lead of this moment of dialogue. And of course, I'd like to thank all the speakers and participants who have made these discussions, I think, such quality, of such high standards. I was saying that sustainability was perhaps the most important issue of our time. This is not always obvious. Of course, I'd like to elaborate on this. In whatever way that we try to address the current crises, upstream we find the same challenges faced by our world. The ability to have a long-term vision. This takes on various forms, of course. There's the technological disruptions. There is economic change. There's social tension. There's political development. There are new international power plays and power relationships. There's a constantly accelerating world. To the tempo of our permanently connected screens and to their incessant notifications. All these movements are based on a few converging factors. The globalization of trade, the digital boom, the rise of a certain type of individualism. All these movements lead to recurring crises, incessant adjustments, and continual disruptions, trapping our contemporaries in the anguish of a somber and disturbing present, amplified by a media whirlwind. All of this gives them the feeling of an increasingly gloomy and unstable world. However, these technological, economic, social, and political changes occur at the same time as another major change, that is the philosophical change, growing environmental awareness, and that is the other important new phenomenon of our era. This awareness, is fast becoming a reality in our world. Having had the chance to attend the Rio summit some 30 years ago, having participated in most of the international summits devoted to these issues since then, and having made them a priority of my action for many years, I've been able to observe this change. And at the beginning, there was just a few of us. Today, there are hundreds of millions of us. This philosophical revolution has a key feature. It revolves along a even very long-term concern and a set of concerns. It is nurtured by concerns that over tens, hundreds, thousands of years, as it requires actions that are capable of looking far beyond the immediate crises with which our rapidly changing world is often most concerned. We are therefore living in a type of schizophrenia. On the one hand, we are trapped in the present and capable of projecting ourselves a few years ahead, and incapable of acting otherwise than disorderly reactions to the news. And on the other hand, our eyes are turned toward a distant horizon for which we do not know to act coherently or responsibly, because our actions and our resources seems to, in a derisory fashion, faced with the magnitude of the threat. Yet I believe that there is no shortage of opportunities to escape from this situation, provided that we do not get the scale or the area wrong. None of us will be able to save the world alone, and perhaps we won't be able to do so altogether either. But collectively, we can bring about genuine change in many areas that are important enough to transform our future. We'll take two extremely concrete and broad examples: energy and food. They concern our daily lives, our very survival even. They're at the heart of many of the adjustments of our era. As far as these two issues are concerned, I believe that we can progress in a sustainable manner as long as we move forward together based on relevant and scientific facts. First of all, energy. Today, we can see the extent to which this issue is at the crossroads, encompassing issues of interdependence, peace, and also security, economic prosperity, social justice, and of course, the issue of global warming. Despite the urgency of current events, we also know that solutions have been out there for years. Renewable energies alone will not only enable us to escape the stranglehold of a few states monopolizing resources, to put an end to certain types of pollution, and above all, to stop the ever-increasing accumulation of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. We currently have all the elements in hand for this. The technology exists, and it is sufficiently diverse to be adapted to the majority of situations found in our countries, whether the energy is based on wind, solar, geothermal, ocean thermal, or even biomass. There are many possibilities, and they're becoming more effective year by year. Of course, they require investment, and some of them still have costs that are, in the short term, very expensive, and more expensive than the fossil energies. This long-term investment also holds the promise of new jobs, of innovation, and therefore progress. That is why more than ever before we need to put our efforts to develop them by working on a collective manner with states, with Europe, and with international organizations. We must lay down binding rules which will reduce the comparative costs of renewable energies. With businesses who have the innovation capacity we need, and with environmental players, citizens, and consumers whose weight will be a determining factor if it leans in favor of these solutions. The conflict in the Ukraine is offering us a window of opportunity for this. We must capitalize on this in order that this crisis gives rise to a new energy model. I therefore believe that a concrete field of action, such as energy, may help to resolve the schizophrenia that I was talking about. The current emergency may be the opportunity to accelerate the sustainable solutions we have struggled so much to implement. The same applies to another equally a key sector and equally vital for our contemporaries, and that is food. Here again, we are confronted with an issue that is at the crossroads of economy, of geopolitics, of development, health, and the environment. Here again, we have known for a long time that our model is not sustainable, and that we need to implement innovative solutions alone capable of securing our future, especially since this future now includes close to 8 billion humans, and unfortunately, down the road, not too far away, it'll be 9 or 10 billion humans. These solutions are known. They are based on less intensive farming, more respectful of soils and ecological balance, and on the promotion of short supply chains, on the improved nutritional quality of food, thanks to less processing. This also applies, of course, to the products provided by the ocean, but I'll come back to that in more detail a little later on. Like energy, these solutions have the disadvantage, of course, of being more costly in the short term. The calculation is not the same if we look at things in the long term, and if we include what economists call negative externalities, the impact on biodiversity, on the climate, and above all, on human health. Like energy, we therefore need to work together on this. At a time when the COVID crisis has led to a greater awareness of health issues by our contemporaries. Public authorities should promote foods that are respectful of health and of the environment. They must combat certain production methods and certainly harmful consumption patterns. They must work with economic players who have the technical solutions to bring about the necessary change. And they must get the support of consumers who are calling for this change more and more frequently. This is how, once again, we will be able to reconcile the short term with the long term, based on solutions that are directly beneficial to all our contemporaries, and at the same time, more respectful of nature and of the future. In this respect, I'd like to focus in more detail on the role of the ocean, of the global ocean, which is an aspect I believe that is important for us and for the future of our food. It is estimated that over 3 billion of us now get most of our food from the ocean. This number may well double within the next 20 years, reaching 7 billion. The way we use marine resources at the moment is destructive. It is destructive for the ocean, which is deprived of life by overfishing and illegal fishing and unreported fishing, as well as pollution, as well as the consequences of climate change and of the warming of waters, and the destruction of different ecosystems. It is also destructive for us, who suffer the damage we inflict on the marine environment directly in our food. As brought to the fore by the Symposium on the Ocean and Human Health that was organized 2 years ago by my foundation and Boston College, this damage has a direct effect on the entire food chain and consequently on us. It is therefore vital, once again, to take concrete action to promote sustainable solutions at a time when health concerns and food issues are especially at the very top of the agenda. And because I'm talking about the ocean in this country, whose history, geography, and culture is connected to it, I'd like to conclude by saying a word about marine protection, which I believe is the third issue for which we can reconcile the short term with the long term. As such, I'd like to point out two main topics of which we could advance on which we could advance without delay, because they also address the concerns and urgency of our era. First of all, there's the transition of maritime traffic towards a model less dependent on fossil energies, from which we, of course, would like to break free. Great progress can be made here, whether it be by the conversion of vessels to cleaner energies, such as hydrogen, or the development of low-emission areas, especially in the Mediterranean. They will enable us to fight against the local deterioration of ecosystems and the global warming. And more broadly speaking, there is the need to bring about a true blue economy, the multiple facets of which we are aware of: the sustainable management of coastal tourism, the development of marine protected areas, the fight against land-based pollution, and in particular plastics, the promotion of sustainable fishing, support for responsible agriculture. All these solutions have been proven and have proven effects, as reflected by the various initiatives implemented by different organizations in the Mediterranean and supported by my foundation also, where we have already observed the return of colonies of certain species, such as the monk seal, in which we have been involved for many years now. And that was a project that was right here in Greece with different partners. Consequently, the short-term tyranny we are going through today is not inevitable. On the contrary, some crises offer opportunities for a long-term vision and ambition that are alone capable of helping us to save not only our ocean, but save our planet. The discussions you've launched during this event form part of this necessity. I hope that they will prompt us to move forward all together along this path. Thank you very much.